Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Therese Lee, and this is Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Welcome. We're grateful that you're here online, in consciousness, whatever day, whatever time it is that you are joining us. It's Sunday, January 29th, and I'd like for us to start in prayer like we always do in Unity. So take a moment, move from your head to your heart space, and breathe. Living, loving presence, we are grateful for this day, grateful for technology, for the opportunity to open our minds and our hearts and our ears and be present to the presence that is everywhere, always present. Thank you for Unity teachings, for the ability to be all that we have come here to be. And so it is that we pray this in the name and after the nature and under the authority of the living, loving presence that is you and that is me. And so it is. Amen. We're grateful that you're here. As you join us, go ahead and write in the box your name, where you're from, because that pushes Facebook algorithms, whatever that means. And if you have a request for a prayer, an intention for a prayer you'd like for us to hold with you, if you would like to receive our email, go ahead and send us a note in the box. We're grateful. Feel free to share the Facebook post with whomever you'd like. Know that all of our talks are archived on our website. All right, so it's January, and we are beginning to be together in a mind place of, let's get a life for 2023. We have talked about who we've come to be in 2023. What do we want to see in 2023? Set intentions, let go all the gunk. And so now, what does it mean to have a life, to be alive while you and I are living? That's my hope and dream for us all, right? We know that so many people exist and others really might be dead to the prospect of living while they're alive. The affirmation I've chosen for today is, I am a life-giving spirit. So say it with me. I am a life-giving spirit. That's you and that's me. So a not new thought is we're here for life. You and I, we have life sentences. Yes. So how will you spend that time living the power of life as you, through you? You and I, we get to learn and practice over and over and over, adding life to our years, right? As opposing adding years to our life. Let's add life to our years. We know it's precious. We know that we don't know when the great calling comes to move into the next job description that we might have that we call death. And so let's live while we're alive. Are you game? I am. So what does it mean to get a life? You know, sometimes you've heard it as an expression, right? That is said sometimes when someone might not be minding their own business and they'll say to you, get a life. Or it's someone else sticking their nose in, possibly being petty. It's all right. Remember, when folks invite us to have a life, it's a reminder that we get to. And it's all about choice. It's all about choice. And we get to have an absolute good life, because that's the definition that our Dean of Metaphysics, Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, says. God is absolute good. And that's the most accurate statement, Paul says, about this presence we call God, because God, as absolute good, is the description that really can't be defined, right? And yet we know that God has no opposite. And so therefore, we know that it can be, in fact, a great demonstration that God is absolute good. You know me, I'm not big on labels and not big on living in these boxes of right or wrong and good and bad. However, to know that God is absolute good, which means that you and I get to have an absolutely good life. I think it's a great way to begin 2023. We have before, last year, and I'm sure we'll do it again this year, study the 12 powers, the 12 faculties of mind, the 12 gifts within us. So, we come in loaded. Let me have a little bit of a hydration as we start our time together. So we've got these 12 attributes, faculties of mind. They're named many things. And we don't have to do anything to get them. We don't have to go to a special store. We don't have to take a special class. All that you and I get to do is to call them forth. And so I want to review them. Remember, 12 is a spiritual number of completion. Calling forth these attributes, these strengths, these powers that will assist us in getting a life. So I'm going to review them with you, all right? Would it be okay if you have a more balanced life, allowing for these faculties of mind, these powers within us to make manifest under the direction of our higher God self, allowing ourselves to be spirit-led? I hope your answer is yes. I hope your answer is yes. So we start with faith, and we celebrate the faith that is in us. It's always where we start our spiritual journey. Faith is the perceiving power of mind. Jesus, our way shower in unity, tells us that we are to have faith in God, which helps us understand that we get to focus our mental attention on the absolute good, the limitless flow of the renewing energy of God within us. How wonderful is that, especially as we're starting out a new year? So I'll be interested as we live this year together, how the power of faith makes manifest in your life. Are you willing to have faith in your life? So with faith then comes love, the ability to know the oneness with all, the desire that only absolute good comes to each and every one of us. Are we willing? Love heals and harmonizes, renews, prospers, and unites. What a wonderful gift to have. It's the ability to share, to practice generosity as we do in unity, to draw together in community. Our consciousness of love, you and I, it casts out fear and loneliness and all the demands of the ego that don't serve us anymore. So I'm wondering this year, how will love show up in your life? Faith and love allows us then to call forth the power of strength within us. Scripture tells us in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15, in returning and rest shall be your strength. I'm not talking about being strong. Nope, you all know me. It's about the strength within us. True strength is quietness, inner confidence, the ability to love our enemies, right? That shadow part of ourselves that we project out onto others. It allows us to not be provoked. It allows us to see absolute good. Strength is also a balance, Fillmore tells us, between thinking and feeling. Thinking is the intellect, the male aspect of us within, the divine masculine, and the balance of feeling, the divine feminine within us, the heart. So the balance of logic and emotion, consciousness and subconsciousness, intellect and intuition. I love this stuff. They're great tools for our tool belt. How in 2023 will you allow the power of strength to make manifest in your life? I look forward to hearing about it. How will you nurture that inner quiet strength within? Next, we get to celebrate wisdom. It's also been called judgment, right? The ability to discern, to evaluate, to make decisions. Yes, we have to make decisions. It's the ability to make up our mind. Excuse me. We know this in unity that heaven and hell are states of consciousness, states of mind that we create, you and I, by the decisions we make in the courtroom of our mind. Isn't that beautiful? How will you allow the power of judgment and wisdom to impact your life? To convert an idea into words that then we speak, actions that we then take, and things that you and I create in the world. So we own it. We are powerful, unique expressions of God. We already know this about ourselves. And it allows us then to be centered and poised in this great attribute, the faculty of mind that we call power, manifesting in your life as you allow yourself to be spirit-led. Are you willing? We move then into the power, the faculty of mind of imagination. The ability to form thoughts, mental pictures, and positive images. Isn't that great? The greatest misuse of imagination is worry, right? So we get to be mindful of our focus. You and I have the ability to be aware of the flow of what comes into our minds, the images we allow ourselves to watch on TV, right? The books we read, what we listen to. Are you willing to engage your imagination and let yourself get a life? Imagination allows us then to move into the gift of celebrating our understanding, the ability to make sense of all of the other powers that we have, all the faculties of mind, all these gifts that we're talking about today. Understanding allows us to know that divine mind, capital D, capital M, stands under all things. I love that. Knowing that the foundation we stand upon is divine mind, God. It allows us to be aware, you and I, that we get to create through our next attribute of will, the ability to allow God to spiritly lead us in our lives. You and I, as we step into this faculty of will, celebrate the faculty of being God's executives in the world. You and I, the CEOs of our lives, co-creating them, making manifest and outpicturing them into the world. You and me. Are you willing to own it? You and I are the ones that get the job done when we allow ourselves to be Spirit-led. Are you willing to continue a daily practice of spiritual growing, pushing out the edges, so to speak, and allowing yourself to be Spirit-led? Are you willing to allow then the next faculty of order to be engaged? Our ability to know what is important and to put our life in order. You and I, what works for you, what works for me. Remember, no one is the boss of you, except for God. Our ability to know what's important and what things must come first. I spoke last week about putting God first and then following the guidance that we get. Are you willing? We hear in scripture all the time that we're supposed to seek heaven, right? Kingdom of heaven. Well, where is it? It's right here, right now. It outpictures as our spiritual consciousness and our values. How are you living? How then can you add all that onto the rest of your life? Order helps you and me to establish and maintain worthy personal and social priorities, right? Because it allows us to bring in our values. What's important? How do we want to live from this understanding of putting our order in first place, the order of God first? And then my favorite, power, zeal, right? Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm means of God. Of course it does. So how are you being enthusiastic in your life? And you know my favorite saying, I am alive, awake, alert, joyous, and enthusiastic. Are you willing? Are you enthusiastic? That's your question. We get to be fired up with energy. We get to stretch out of our comfort zones, drive to be the best Spirit-led person we can be, to improve the contributions we give to life and to our own lives as well, to the practice of how we study. You know, Charles Fillmore said at 94 that he fairly sizzles with zeal. How are you going to be this expression of enthusiasm in your life? And then, of course, as we've already done this year, celebrating the power of release, the ability to give a no thank you response to the untrue and undesirable things that make your life best, that allow you to show up the best you can. So when we have taken this month to look at how it is now compared to January of 2022, we get to see how much we've grown. We wrote our letters to our biggest self last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. And so now in December, we'll get to see all that we are making manifest now. It's quite exciting, isn't it? I hope you have your 64 box of Crayolas to color your world this year with great enthusiasm, to create a life of living while you're alive. Please, please. So there's a wonderful story about a taxi driver who was a little surprised when the person who got into his car was an older woman, and she only had a little suitcase with her. And he said, where would you like to go? And she gave him an address. And she asked him to go a certain way to this location. And he said, ma'am, that's a long way to get to where you're going. And she replied, I'm not in a hurry. Please take me this way. What he didn't know is that her destination was a hospice house where you and I know people go to live the rest of their life, right? Before they die in their physical body. So the driver heads downtown and he's driving through the darkened streets, and the old woman is pointing out place after place that were significant in her life. The building where she once worked, the coffee shop where she met her husband, the old ballroom where she had gone dancing. The taxi driver listened with such respect as this woman recounted her life story of a well-spent life of love and work and responsibility. And so eventually, the taxi driver reached the location to see that it was the hospice house. And the elderly lady, of course, reached out to give him her money, and he brushed it away. And he gave her a big hug and handed her off to the attendants at the building. As the taxi driver tells the story, he was driving away from this location where he had, left the lady, and he reflected on the opportunity he might have missed if he had been in a hurry, if he had not taken the time to care about this woman who cared about sharing her life with him as she was going then to live in comfort in hospice for the rest of her life. So how about this power of life? Let's talk about it. Unity author and minister Sig Paulson. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I know many who knew him. He wrote in his book, Your Power to Be, the affirmation, I am a life-giving spirit expressing myself through the miracle-working faith, a rhythmic will of good, a growing understanding, a vivid imagination, a vibrant enthusiasm, a deepening inner sense of authority and decision. I am a life-giving spirit expressing myself through a feeling of love, wise action, a sparkling joy, a resilient strength, a forgiving attitude, a thrilling sense of aliveness. I am a life-giving spirit. That was our affirmation when we started today. Say it again with me. I am a life-giving spirit. So the power of life, the faculty of mind we call life, the attribute and gift of life. It seems like it might be easy to understand, and maybe that's why we don't think about it very often, or why we don't really understand it. It's a natural expression of our unique unrepeatableness, right, of God that you and I express out into the world. Without life, all the other powers cannot express themselves in this earthly realm. We, you and I, get to be living our life every day. Are you willing? How much do you use prayer and meditation to rise up, to draw strength, to be spirit-led, to live every day full of gratefulness, no matter the situation? knowing you're not alone, that God is, and therefore you and I are the one presence, the one power, active in the universe and in our lives, God, the absolute good, present as close as your heartbeat and your breath. Life is a gift. And you and I, through the way we live, get then to present and reflect back the greatness of the gift as we live it. Are you willing? Are you willing? Let your life be big. Get a life. Let yourself engage your possibilitarianism. Allow yourself to engage the possibilities, to let your light shine and reflect the magnificence that you are, the very beloved of God. So get a life, live while you're alive, and know that in fact you are a life-giving spirit. So take a moment. Let's go into a time of prayer and meditation together, all right? You and I, right now. We close our outer eyes and we breathe. And we give ourselves a moment to travel that longest distance from the head to the heart. Breathe again and exhale. And exhale. We use our breath as a tool in unity to take us ever deeper within, where each of us meets the God of our own understanding. Are you willing? Are you willing? And so we take a moment again and breathe. We let go the busyness that brought us here today. And we say thank you. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for my scarf. Living, loving presence. We are grateful for this time, grateful for knowing that in this moment, each time we move from our head to our heart space, we realize and are grateful for the Spirit of God that resides within each of us. We embrace both our humanity and our divinity. 100% of each in each and every moment. We embrace the spiritual transformation that happens each time we go into a time of prayer and meditation. And we breathe. We give thanks for these 12 gifts that bless us. The 12 powers: faith, love, strength, wisdom, power, imagination, will, understanding, order, zeal, release, and life. We embrace them and we call them forth as part of our spiritual tool belt that we wear. And we allow for the spirit-ledness of us to engage these gifts so that we may bless the path we're on, as well as all of those whose lives we touch. And we breathe. And we breathe. We are grateful for the empowerment within, the glorious, unlimited resources. And we breathe into the many seasons of life. As we go into the silence, we think of something that makes us grateful, something that brings a smile to our face. And so as we go into the silence, let us think on this. Something that brings a smile to your face in the silence. Is it possible that you and I are being summoned from some deep, holy place within us? Are we asking to stand on the edge of possibility? And so we bring our attention back to this time and this place, these sacred and holy grounds we call Unity Spiritual Center, and we're grateful that you're with us today. Grateful no matter what time it is, no matter what it is that's happening in your life that brought us here today, we're grateful for this time together. And so before we say our prayer for protection, know that your practice of generosity is greatly received. At our P.O. Box 1392, Bluffton, South Carolina 29910. We receive your cards and your checks and your notes. Thank you. And on our website at www.unityofhiltonhead.org, where there's a practice generosity button. Go ahead, use your credit card or PayPal, and we are grateful to do the will and the work that is ours as Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. So let's say our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. And the presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever you and I are, God is. And because God is, all is well. Thank you. We are grateful. Reverend Therese signing off, Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Many blessings.